Hi, welcome to Matt Holman Golf. I thought we'd take a look at Rickie Fowler today and the changes he's been making in his swing. On the right hand side is his swing from 2011. Left hand side was recent, maybe a month or so ago. He's made some really noticeable changes in this last period. I mean, even from last season to now, over this winter period, he's really made some considerable changes. So he's been working with Butch Harmon. I worked with his son for about 2 years, Claude Harmon. It's quite interesting because often Butch Harmon will really work with the swing and just make subtle changes. If you look at players like Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson, really their swings in a few years of working with Butch Harmon look pretty similar. There's nothing, really big changes. I think Gary Woodland was one where he's made more changes and it took him a while to get used to it, but now he's starting to play better again. But these changes with Rickie Fowler are very noticeable. So let's start on the right hand side. So I think Rickie Fowler's previous swing, great player, P.G.A Tour winner, highly talented, but actually quite an unorthodox technique and a lot of timing required. Amazing that he could play so well with this move. The average guy would really struggle to hit the ball straight and wouldn't have the timing to be able to compensate. So what Rickie, set up orthodox, looked good, but what he would do, he'd really pull the handle in and keep the club head very much outside his hands. And I like that move, but this is too exaggerated. And then the club face is very much looking down and quite closed here. So due to that, he's got quite a steep shoulder plane, and he can really only go two ways from there. He either keeps going across the line and pointing, and that club's going to end up pointing miles right, or then he's got to really rotate his forearms now, which he does. So, he gets that shaft sort of looking relatively vertical, but his arms there are miles behind his body. So even in the methods where we want to get the arms a bit deeper, he is very deep with his arm plane there. So, and then at the top, sort of recovers again, shaft line, club face is square, but his arms are really flat or lower than his shoulder plane. He's getting very low, very behind him there. His arms are way behind his heels. Really, most methods, the maximum you're really going to as an ideal is not really swinging past with that end of the club past the right heel there. So he's much deeper than that. You'd say that's sort of flattened behind him, and now everything's going to fall downwards. And everything's even more behind him. But, where he's good here and he's got great instinct, he's able to, like Garcia really, he's able to pull that shaft and actually keep that club shaft in front of him. Most of the better players I work with, if they're on that line coming down, that club would be so far from the inside that they would just block and hook all day long, where he's really able to pull that club in front. And then, interesting move, someone like Rory McIlroy would do this. If we look at the right knee, see how it's actually sort of straightening up and locking up, and the hips now are stopping. So it's just stop, and then arms disconnect to move on to hit this draw. Now, he has to do that. If his lower body kept moving through with the club and arms that far behind his body, he would, the swing would be so out of sync, he would just hit this ball way right and way left. And someone like Rory McIlroy does this a little bit as well. He gets the club a little bit stuck and trapped behind him, and then he really stop and slow the lower body down. For all you better players out there, if you're trying to fix a lower body that seems to stop through impact, and there's quite a few frames where it's stopping, usually that's a case of somewhere before in the swing you're out of sync. So lower body's outrace the upper body, or your arm and club plane are too much from the inside, and then it's a late matching sort of movement. Everything's going to stop to give himself room to let the club pass him, and then keeps everything and then everything swings on through. So, you know, the Butch Harmon stuff that I worked on Claude Harmon was very similar. They would always talk about, look, let's keep the arms in front of your body. The more the arms can stay in front of the body swinging up, the more likely they're going to come down on a good plane in the downswing. And I think this swing on the left-hand side, even though drastically different, I think, you know, you're going to start to see him win a lot more and play a lot more consistent. But like all things, you know, just because it looks better, it's also different to what he's used to, and so then there's a time period to adjust and get used to that new swing. So, you know, set up similar to what it used to be. First movement now is very much online. We can sort of do a comparison. So now, hands stay very much up the hand line, club heads up that line to slightly outside. Look at the old swing, so handles dragged in, clubs very much outside. Look how much more we look at that club face, even though I like a club face matching their spine and looking down. I mean, this club face is closed. So we look at him now, it's much more toe hanging straight up there. So now he works into his halfway back position. I mean, arms now in the centre of his chest, where we would be an ideal instead of behind him. So everything on that right hand side, you know, you can definitely play good golf, which he did. I mean, he's a great player with that swing on the right hand side, but everything on the left hand side now is making a good impact more likely to occur. On the right hand side, he's going to have to recover to hit good shots. So arms now very orthodox centre of the body. Arms are now matching his shoulder plane. I can show you. So now, you know, arms are underneath now, shoulder plane and arm plane in one line. I'll give you a couple of other reference points I would work to. I would tend to put a line, I went back to setup, line across the top of the head, one up from the heel. And I'd say that cross there is a pretty good reference point to where we want the butt of the club at the top. So you can see he's noticeably behind that. Now, camera was moving there, so in terms of the horizontal line, you know, it's not as accurate as it could be. But if we look at this now, you're going to see he's going to end up, I would presume, much closer to that. So from there, now everything's going to stay much more in front of him. Huge difference here now. You know, so his arms are sort of trapped behind his body. He's in recovery mode there on the right hand side. Now left, he's on plane. I mean, amazing job to change it this quickly, and everything's out in front of him. It's great to impact, moving through. I think going forward, I think what you're going to see change in his swing. Now that club's out in front of him here. You know, before he needed this stopping leg action and that right leg restricting, where now actually, as he becomes used to this, he's going to be able to use his lower body better. You can see his transition slightly changing going forward, but you can see how his right heel sort of drives up. He doesn't really get weight moving into the instep, and I think you'll start to see a different look through that right leg and right knee and move through. I think you'll start to see the handle swing a little bit more left as well, and everything will be connected and keep moving through more. But, you know, I think one of the most noticeable changes in a swing in quite a long time, and it'll be interesting to follow his progress this year and see how he plays.